Francis Hughes is a journalist in the United Kingdom who joins me live for more on this development. Thank you so much for joining us on World Now. Nicola Sturgeon has been Scotland's first minister for more than 8 years, the longest anyone has stayed in the post. What would her tenure be remembered for?
I think she'll be remembered as the person who led the drive for Scottish independence. She would be seen as the face of Scottish independence. As you've alluded to, she's been in the post for 8 years. An interesting kind of aside to that is that Rishi Sunak, who is the Prime Minister of Britain at Westminster, and Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition Labour Party, were both elected for the first time to the British Parliament in 2015. So Nicola Sturgeon has already lasted longer than their two political careers, which have both seen meteoric rises in the last seven years or so. So I think there is a huge controversy around the independence vote. It's like almost 50-50 in Scotland. I watched her resignation speech, and she seemed to allude to the pressures of public life. She seemed to allude to that perhaps she was becoming the story rather than Scottish independence, that there are potentially a lot of trolls there and a lot of people who would like to see her fail. But during the questions, the journalistic questions after her resignation speech, she was asked by Sky News correspondent that the police are investigating the Scottish National Party finances for some irregularities. I thought this would be a perfect opportunity for Nicola Sturgeon to say, that's fine, it's nothing to do with me, I have nothing to hide. But instead she said, well, obviously the investigation will run its course, and at the end of it, we will find out just what's been going on with the party finances. And it's very, very, very rarely that a leader of a political party, never mind a first minister in government, suddenly and quickly and hastily leaves office if they are either not, physically ill, if they are not kind of the fixation of government inter-party machinations around who should be leading the party, or also, that she's failed in the elections, which she hasn't done so. So it's very, very, very unusual that she's actually decided to resign for the reasons she's given.
Absolutely. So how would you say Nicola Sturgeon's government addressed issues of poverty and inequality, and what it should do to promote economic growth in Scotland?
I think it's very difficult whenever these governments are all following the neoliberal austerity packages. She claimed, as many politicians do, to want to shorten and lessen the wealth gap between those in abject poverty and those in absolute wealth. And that has singularly failed. The health service is in crisis. The staff need pay raise that's commensurate with inflation, which they're not getting. The waiting lists are getting longer and longer and longer. There was huge controversy around some of the transgender issues that were alluded to earlier, as to how that kind of fits in with Scottish society and its kind of religious societal outlook. So, she leaves as many problems behind her as she faced when she first became the First Minister 8 years ago.
Right. So one of the issues is before she came into power, one of the issues is the EU membership for Scotland. She voted to remain in the EU in the 2016 Brexit referendum. So do you think an independent Scotland will be able to rejoin the European Union if this actually, succeeds at the end of the day after she leaves?
Well, this is what referendums are all about. If you remember the British referendum, it was like 51% of people voted to leave the European Union and 49% or 48% voted to remain. So if the people in Scotland have a referendum on independence and they vote for independence and they have a separate view as an independent sovereign nation, and that gets 51% of the vote, then obviously Scotland will rejoin the European Union. And as an Irish socialist, I would be very happy to see Scotland independent, but I personally would not like to see Scotland rejoin the European Union.
Well, so who are the remaining candidates for SNP leader, particularly who else do you think could take over from Sturgeon as an SNP leader?
Well, it's a choice for the party, and that's not a cop-out. It's a very small pool of potential candidates when you consider Scotland is such a small country, such a small GDP. People talk about John Winnie, among others. I think, there'll be a lot of jockeying and a lot of positioning and a lot of politicking in the background. And the shame of politics is the art of compromise. When people will say, well, if I encourage people to vote for you as a leader, what position will you give me within the new government? So I think there's a lot of horse trading. I don't think there is any one single person out in front as the obvious candidate, although obviously the deputy first minister is the person who would have the most kind of they would have the most political acumen when it comes to actually stepping into the position that Nicola Sturgeon is stepping down from.
One will continue to wonder what Nicola Sturgeon's resignation would definitely mean for the UK's future. We'll continue to monitor the situation as it continues to unfold. A journalist in the United Kingdom, Francis Hughes, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're watching World Now.